There we go. We are live. I've put the link in the event so that if that's what the problem is for Terry and Kristen and Jen, they can get in. But others are free to jump in. We've got 5 spare seats this week. And meantime, Bill, what have you been up to this week?
It's been a rough couple weeks. My father passed away, and I'm the executor for the will, which means I've got to work on selling our family home and distribute the rest of his assets and figure out how to do that,
Yeah,
which isn't fun so far. Uh,
no. That's what you
I
get for being the only legally trained one.
I think so. My sister knows a lot more about my folks' finances than I do, and she's the next town over. But uh, it's good that we're working together and trying to do things together, I think.
Yeah. Are you close with your siblings? Do you have a lot of contact?
I'm closer to my sister than I am to my brother.
Cool.
hmm And
So, which one did you fight non-stop with as a kid? That's the question. There's always one.
I didn't fight too much with my brother because I think he realized who would win those fights most of the time.
It's funny. It's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, when you said you're closer to your sister, I bet she's the one you fought most with. Because it's surprising how often that's the case, that the one you fought most with is the one you end up closest to later on in life.
We'll see.
But yeah. Jen has just finished a conference call and will be with us in a moment. I don't know where Kristen's got to. She was around, I know that. And Bill, I expect Terry's waiting for somebody to Skype him the link.
I would guess so. Maybe I should do that before he asks. I
It
think
could be.
I'll do that before he asks. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting week for me. I've been a little bit ill, and it's just been it's nothing major. I just had an allergic reaction to something, and I broke out in dermatitis like crazy, and just been itching and itching for days.
Oh no.
Um,
I've been fighting off a cold myself. I've got NyQuil and DayQuil, and I try to remember which day or night what time of day it is before I take each one.
yeah,
Uh, so this way I don't fall asleep during the middle of the day too often. And I
exactly.
did that yesterday.
It says that you're not supposed to operate heavy machinery, and I've heard that fan on your computer. If that isn't heavy machinery, I don't know what. So it always does get me.
Right, but my phone is just about as powerful as my desktop computer, and it's a lot smaller. It doesn't make all the fan noise too.
No, my partner Sharon recently got a new. Well, she needed a new phone. She dropped her iPhone into the washing up bowl completely, submerged it, and iPhones, the old ones, do not like water. There's a lot of rumours that that's why they've actually got rid of the earphone socket and so on, is because they were notoriously bad, the worst, for if you accidentally got them wet. So yeah, that phone died. She got a new phone, but she ended up getting a J5, which is this phablet thing. I keep kidding her that it needs a shoulder strap. Uh, it's huge, great big screen, but yeah, it's more of a small tablet than a large phone sometimes. So yeah, that thing's heavy machinery. Hey Terry.
Just getting set up here.
Well, we've had an interesting week news-wise. I'll pick up on one of the things that that Kristin pointed out about the search results being officially amped. We've certainly seen, I'm hearing from multiple places that AMP pages are getting huge amounts of traffic right now. And it seems to be partly that, obviously, you know, Google are signifying which pages have AMP. There's the little signal, you know, the little symbol on them. And we know from previous updates, anytime some listings get some extra little feature, whether it's, you know, an authorship tag, whether it's a picture next to it, whether it's just an extra icon on it, it does affect the click-through rate. And it seems like that's been what's been happening to those. But we all think as well that if AMP isn't already a ranking factor, it is certainly going to be. I've never seen Google pushing anything as hard as they've been pushing AMP at all, ever.
To a degree, it's a rewritten version of HTML and JavaScript, right?
Yeah, it's a limited version, definitely. It's a safer version for them in a lot of ways. One of the things I've said about it is it's very difficult to do tricky, deceptive things with the amount of legitimate code they've given you to work with.
And if they make the pages between ads faster, that's all the better for Google.
Yes.
The more ads people get to see, the better things are. And it's looking like Google is showing thumbnails and web pages in search results on mobile devices.
Yep.
And at some point, it looks like they're going to put buy now buttons on those. A friend, Barbara Starr, suggested that to me the other day, and I agree with her.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. But I certainly say right now, if you're not using AMP, you are missing a trick, because the sites that are using it have almost all had a big boost in traffic recently over, you know, their pages that don't have AMP.
That will last as long as people like me don't want to do it.
I can't say I've noticed the little AMP label next to AMP pages. I tend to read a lot of news stories on my phone anyway. So I may have evidenced that behavior without being complicit in looking for a feature that draws my eyes to those pages. I'm not clicking because there's an AMP button.
But we know from the last Google Q&A how many times AMP was referenced, even though, you know, it wasn't the topic of our discussion. But it, you know, the answers kept coming back to it. Oh, you should use AMP for that, or it wouldn't happen with AMP, or you know that this is a major thing on the minds of people who are actively involved in search quality. And if they're saying this is such a big deal to them, of course it's going to start featuring into the rankings. Of course it is. These are the people who decide what makes a quality page, and they are determined that AMP does.
Right. And I've got to go back and look at it. There's a new patent application with Navneet Panda's name on it. It's just covered in search quality.
Yeah. Well, they can't give him another update now. He's had one named after him. And you know, the update was called Panda 2, so I mean, you know, he can't even do a sequel.
No, it's true.
Hey, Jen. How was the conference call? Was it productive? Can't hear you. I don't know why, but can't hear you.
Works better with the mute off.
Yeah, could be. I didn't see a little mute symbol. It might just be that it hasn't picked up the mic yet. But
right, sorry.
She's experienced. She'll figure it out. And if she doesn't, I'll have so much fun teasing her about it. So yeah, AMP certainly does seem to be big news at the moment and very likely to get bigger. And seriously, I mean, some of the stats, some of the people have been sharing, some of the reports people have been showing me. I mean, AMP has been getting a huge boost.
I did notice an amp from Apple a couple weeks ago on a patent that was filed in 2009. So when they come out with that, we'll see. But I suspect it'll come out fairly soon.
Yeah. I have, of course, been looking at a few things recently. One of the things I was looking at this week, I shared it on Twitter, was, of course, one of the stories about Apple, and saying that, you know, when we're looking at this this shift in the world that we've been all noticing recently, where it just seems that people are less socially conscious. We've got more of the sort of Trump politics, the Farage politics, the closing off of borders, the we look after ourselves and screw everyone else kind of mentality. And saying that if they ever write a book about this shift, Apple will have a whole chapter to itself, and companies like it. Because this is a company that's making, you know, huge profits. It's got more cash reserves than the US government. It's got tons and tons of money, and yet it still decides that, you know, the best thing to do with that money is to employ the cheapest workers in China rather than actually do anything for the US economy. It evades taxes in most countries of the world. It's actively laughing off a $14 billion debt in Ireland from the EU. And of course, you know, its three main factories. That scandal a year ago has not been fixed, where 18 attempted suicides at one time from young employees there. You know, these are factories where the workers live in dormitories on the factories. They work 12 hours a day. They do another hour and a half unpaid. It's minimum wage stuff. It's ridiculous levels. This was, you know, clearly pointed out. Apple did an investigation, which meant basically doing a announced 3-day tour. Oh yeah, I'm sure the worker, you know, the factory can't hide what it's doing for 3 days and catch up. It was livid. Go on, Terry.
I disagree that it's evading taxes, because what they're doing is perfectly legal. And
I didn't say they were illegally evading taxes, but they knowingly.
As a stockholder, you could actually sue the company if they didn't do that. So, you know, some of this is like, the EU just looks for ways to find and tax and do all this stuff to American companies because they can't compete. You know, it's
Terry, you know it's evading tax in the US as well,
1776.
You know they're evading the same taxes in the US.
They're not evading taxes. Otherwise, the government would have...
Terry, I'm not saying illegally evading taxes. I've worked with accountants. Part of their job is to offset and otherwise evade taxes, to put everything in places where you don't have to pay tax on it. They are, without doubt, evading tax legally, but they are doing it. There's no two ways about it.
That's no different than me taking, you know, what I pay other people out of what I make. Like, I don't understand it. Like, why there's...
Okay, Terry, the way it works is this.
You know,
you set up a company.
It's not like they're breaking the law, and they're not evading taxes. They're just doing their taxes efficiently.
Well, actually, the EU found they were evading taxes. They were found guilty in court and charged $14 billion.
Yeah, but they actually took the law from today and put it to what was done 14 years ago. So that's kind of like saying, let's go retroactively 14 years. It's like Apple was expected to know that they were going to change the law, that they were going to join the EU. It's kind of, you know, it's the same nonsense you hear from the EU over and over. That's just my opinion.
Ireland has been in the EU for as long as it's been using the euro as currency, which is that amount of time, Terry. The way this works is a company sets up a dummy corporation. Apple has this headquarters that, funny enough, has no staff, no activity, and pays them X amount, and all the amount that goes through them basically is untaxable.
There's Google employees in Ireland. They act as a research team and quality team in Ireland.
I didn't say Google. We're talking Apple.
Oh,
Apple.
Okay, right. My bad. But they're after everybody. They charged Google with some nonsense a while back too, which was basically, we can't compete, so we're going to tax you.
It's the same regulation. And yeah, at the moment, so many companies are doing it. What they do is they set up a corporation. It's usually headquarters in, Switzerland is very popular for it. Now, Google does have a big operation in Switzerland, but what they do is they set up usually this isn't Google, this isn't particularly Apple, but let me explain the thing to you. You set up a dummy corporation or a holding company in Switzerland. You award them all of the ownership of your trademarks and so on and so forth, your patents, and then you charge your own companies 80% of their revenue to use your trademarks. That's then an offset expense. Because they're having to pay 80%, all of that is operating expense to them, even though it's their own company. It's somewhere, but the law is that it allows them to evade an awful lot of money. It means that the bit that's making the money is paying 80% of that for the trademarks, even though, hang on, you've just given the trademarks to this other company, and that's all they do is own trademarks. That's how it works. And anybody can do this, Terry. You can do this. It is, at the moment, legal. It's not ethical. There's no way on earth this is ethical. It's, it's a sidestep. And to me, no. Business, the whole thing of business is to build something that employs people in a community. That is a business. I'm sorry, I do not think that outsourcing, finding the cheapest labour is business. That's profiteering. That's not business.
Okay.
Anyone
That's
think
one
that?
way to look at it. Worked out real well for Russia.
Yeah, I'm just not in favour of this idea that a company exists to make as much money as possible and pay out as little as possible. That's a really poor kind of business. It's not like you can take it with you. It's not like you're doing anything. Money's worth nothing on its own. It's only what you can do with it. Money is an intermediary value that we use to, act as a token in bartering. But what are they going to buy other than politicians' votes to enable them to do these things that they didn't need to do in the first place? To me, the entire point of a business is to employ people and support its community. A community is built around
business that opened up to support their employees. They do it to make money.
Mine? Yes, you do.
Okay. I know.
Jen, what's your business for? Is it to support you and its employees?
Well, generally, yeah. But I came in kind of late in this conversation, so I don't know exactly what kicked it off.
I don't have employees. I have consultants that I pay. I don't have an employee. Too much of a bother.
And how often do you go, I'm not employing you, you're very good, but you're expensive. I want the cheapest guy I can find in China, Taiwan, Philippines.
Actually, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
As
That's what I'm talking about, Terry. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
We always choose quality and people that we know and trust, and to build a company that stands for something, that means something, that does something, rather than makes money. If you want to make money, it's easy. Make a printing press.
Or go.
There you go. Run up as much as you like. may not be legitimate, but money itself is only an intermediary thing in the first place. It's a token. It's not worth anything on its own.
It works for governments pretty good.
Yeah, but you already know that it costs more than $1 to make a dollar bill.
Yeah. That's not very good.
Literally, money is worth nothing. It's worth less than nothing. It costs you money to make money.
Well, now they're getting out plastic here, so I don't know. I think it's probably cheaper now.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well, because of course the money now, electronic money, flows so much faster. There's so much more involved in moving it about. I don't know, because of course it used to be that you got charged on every transaction. There's still a lot of companies that do pay a percentage on every credit card fee and so on and so forth.
No, what I meant is our money's all plastic here now, like made out of some kind of plastic. You just got it. Carney just brought it there to Britain, I'm sure.
Oh no, I've still got genuine metal here at the moment.
Okay. You don't have notes?
Oh yeah, we've still got notes, but they're the same as they always were.
Oh, okay. I thought I read
Here's
something.
a low denomination one. Here you go. There's a low denomination one. Yeah, still
paper, eh?
Well, it was never exactly paper.
Well, Mr. Carney will bring you into the 20th century.
It's not cotton. It's not like the dollar bill, which is, I believe, cotton.
Anyhow.
So, other than William has just asked in the chat, how long since the last Penguin update? A long time. A long time. Yeah. Is it going to come? Is it not? We don't care. Do we? I think if you're really worried about the next update, yeah, there's a lot of people who are waiting to recover from the last one. If you're waiting to recover from the last one and you haven't already engineered your recovery in this amount of time, you're doing it wrong.
I think it's going to be interesting to see the sites that think they should recover and don't.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of speculation over link quality and what should be and shouldn't be disavowed or removed.
Okay, so this has probably been brought up till people are blue in the face, but like, what is the best strategy to go about responding?
To remove links, you mean?
Like, if you think that your site should recover but it hasn't, what is the best recourse?
Go and nuke a good chunk of your links so you haven't.
Just start over. That would be my advice. Because you're going to start over anyway. All the visual penalties I've done, every one of them had some sort of authority afterwards. That takes a very, very, very long time to come back.
Well, Penguin, when the new version releases, it's going to be real time. So it's going to be way easier for sites to recover now. It won't be this waiting for the next cycle. So I'm not sure it's going to be that, unless the site's been done really, really bad and has been hit multiple times through the Penguin years. I suspect it's probably going to make more sense to recover the site now, because we're not going to be stuck waiting a year or more for the next refresh or update.
Like, do you think we're just like entering a new kind of age, like a new era, like with that real-time recovery, or will there be something else complicate things that like we haven't even yet?
Well, I think
there's got to be competition. There's always
Google's always going to change what they're doing. They're always going to have to stay one step ahead of the spammers, right? So, stuff's always evolving, like the big fluctuation people have been seeing for the last month or so. Google hasn't confirmed what it is other than its quality, and it sounds like it's not actionable, but SEO is ever changing. You always have to be on top of what's happening, what's changing.
Thing. Like you said, SEO is always changing because like so often I hear or I read like the principles are all the same. And of course, like I'm sure like you probably agree with that. Is this like just a boring conversation to like go into that again? Like where is the balance between like it's always changing and yet
Well, if it was always static, then everyone would be able to rank their spammy pages for buy Viagra, right? So they always have to kind of evolve. And like stuff that we did, 5 years ago was perfectly fine, and today it's considered spam. Basically, that's why it's always going to change. That's why it's always important to keep on top of stuff and that's why a lot of companies get into trouble because they read, an article about SEO from like 2006 and don't realize, especially the problem now with people removing dates on their content, so you can't tell how fresh or
It's
how
so
recent.
stupid. That is so stupid. It's not how Google tells whether or not something's evergreen. The fact that you've hidden the date so people don't know when it's from. People know something's evergreen when people keep on linking to it.
Yeah.
And not that it has no date so you don't know when it's from. I ignore stuff like that when I
So do
have no
I.
idea.
I will not
Viper
reference
said
anything.
Gotta be true.
What's that?
Viper Chill was the one who started that. It's gotta be true, Bill.
Well, the thing is, like, people run with it, right? Like, there was, that one study on a single website, and the data was from 2012 or 2013. And all of a sudden, everyone, in the last few weeks is like, oh my God, we got to remove all our dates, and we're going to get this huge increase in ranking. But it's so dangerous if you take SEO advice based on a single site, what has happened with one site, because, in that case, they weren't even saying what site it was, not even what industry it was in. So you can't take away that kind of stuff from a single site.
Just to clear this one up now, Viper Chill, Glenn pointed out a specific example, and the one he was talking about was about when you change the dates, Google was seeing it as fresh again, and he was basing this on the observation of dozens of sites at the time. An extensive thing looking at this and saying how much he was seeing this, and he then posted details from one specific site that he owned that he could then show all sides of, but he'd studied quite a few different sites.
Okay, there was another one that was published last week or maybe the week before that everybody was
like
sharing
2 weeks
everywhere.
ago,
Yeah, that was a single site from data from years ago and no further information. And yes,
like was it a credible person like sharing this, like the single site thing? Because it seems like
that's why I actually looked at it. And
you do have to be careful with this. It's one of the things, people get so lazy about their tests and stuff like that, and it's why peer review is so important to SEO. Never ever just share a piece that you have picked up unless it's already something that's been thoroughly peer reviewed. If somebody shares something, test it yourself and add your thoughts to it. You're now helping that original author by giving them a second opinion and a third opinion. That's how we learned way back. We didn't just do our own stuff, or we did, and we had to do dozens of our own sites, which is time consuming. Often we would put up a few examples, let other people know what we were doing, and they could then put up some examples, and we had a broader set of test data between us. That's how Webmaster World worked. That's how a lot of the early forums work. It's really important to help each other out with peer review, not just share everything you read. Test it. Find the loopholes, find the limits, find the boundaries of each thing.
Well,
is it a terrible idea to like approach everything like it's a beta? Like everything is a beta, like nothing is gospel.
I think that's really important that, look, this is, some people think it can happen. That's what it tells you. It tells you it can happen, not that it will happen.
I am skeptical of everything until I see it myself. I can take it with a grain of salt, basically. That's what you should do. And when you do
even then, you can
very
change.
limited. But here's what I saw this week is in regards to the local update that just happened was a lot of people that were, if you go into something with a bias to prove a bias that you have, for instance, that business centers and virtual offices are, you know, blah, 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 bad things, you can prove it. If you don't look for anything that's positive, right? This week they were, and I actually talked to Bill because I had never read a patent about this, where they're kind of basically, Joy Hawkins and some other guy, I didn't catch his name, were saying that Google can now distinguish between two doctors in the same building. They'll filter one of those doctors out of the local pack and possibly even out of the organic. I was kind of skeptical about that. So I looked a little bit further. What I saw was they also have not just done that, but what I saw in the results, because I actually got filtered, so that's why I'm very interested, was that the one that replaced me was a real, not a high quality site, and B, it didn't even have really a Google business page, but it was in the local results. That told me that not only have they done this filter, but they're not as dependent on the Google My Business page for information. I mean, this guy's page was not even complete. Didn't have business hours. About all it had was an address. Didn't really, it's very hard to, you know, figure this stuff out when people are only going the surface.
But you know, this is it. It was so important to do that cross-checking years ago, and then Google didn't have the level of personalization, localization, data center specificity that it has today. You know, it used to be that the SERP you saw was pretty much what the SERP everyone else was going to see roughly. And you still needed to get other people to cross-check it. These days, you'd have to be insane not to be cross-checking. You can't run data on your own very easily at all, except by things that can show up in your log reports. That's you know, that's the data you can trust, is the actual analytics. And
well,
you know, looking at SERPs, you can't.
Also, when I'm looking at stuff or looking at something like that, Ammon, I'm more interested in the anomalies, i.e. the things that don't fit into what everyone's saying, because that's usually where the real answers are. That's what we found when we started looking at Hilltop a long time ago, myself and Dan Thies and a few other people in I Help You Farm. I learned then, don't look at the obvious, look at the anomalies and try and figure out why they're anomalies. And that's how I came to the conclusion that it has something to do with my business pages too. I believe they've reduced the weighting on those pages because I also, in the same search, you see Regis's main Canadian site replaced by location pages on the same site. So
it's something I always say about, you know, branding and about marketing, that often a thing is best defined by what it doesn't do. Your brand is best defined by what you choose not to do rather than by what you do. Everybody that you compete with does the thing you do. What do you not do? That's what sets you apart. And the same thing when you're trying to narrow down what exactly an algorithm is. Yeah, look for those edge cases, look for the exceptions. That's where you find the real detail that helps you know exactly what's going on.
Jennifer, you heard anything on the local? I'd be interested. Your ears probably.
No, there's been lots of fluctuation. I don't think, as far as I know, people still haven't really figured out what it is that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm real interested because it's the first time I've ever been filtered out of the local. So, something very odd. The only thing I can think of is there's an incubator that sells office space in the same building as we are. That's why I kind of believe that part of it is at least part of it.
One thing to think of if you're seeing weird results, scroll down to the bottom of Google search results and make sure it has your location proper. Because sometimes when I see really funky local results, I scroll down to the bottom and see for some reason it's not geo-targeted me to where it normally is. It'll say like unknown location, or sometimes it'll say Seattle or something weird. So that's something else to look at.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But it did it on 3 or 4 sessions.
No.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, every couple of weeks, for some reason, Google will like freak out and decide it doesn't really believe that I'm wherever my IP says I am or something, and I get that unknown. And that's kind of interesting because you see some interesting things pop up in the search results when that happens as well.
That's because you move around so much too, Jennifer. Like you're in many cities in a short period of time.
Yeah, and I also, I thoroughly confused Google when I went to Australia, and then I came back because so many cities in Australia have the same names as similar cities to where I am, and it just couldn't handle it very well. And I live in a place called Sydney, but it's spelled differently than Sydney, Australia, and it just kept on throwing me the wrong results. Took about 2 weeks, I think, for it to finally sort out that, okay, she's back where she thinks she is.
Now I know where. I knew you lived in Canada. I didn't know it was Nova Scotia.
Oh, different Sydney. I'm West Coast.
Really?
I must admit, British travellers are kind of like that, aren't they? You know, the British explorers went out and just decided to name everything for the towns they already knew that they'd come from.
Yeah, it was the same. I noticed that in Australia. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. You know, you've got one of the territories there, New South Wales. You know, South Wales is kind of nice, but I'm not sure. You know, it's the first thing that would spring to my mind. Wow, I'm in a new country. Look at these incredible creatures here. There's wallabies, there's kangaroos. Oh, look, a duck-billed platypus. I know, I should call it Wales. What? The indigenous life form of Wales is sheep. That's it. Yeah, and let's face it, that was the one creature that didn't exist there, and they had to take it over. You know, what were they thinking of? New York. Now you go to York over here. It's a lovely city. It's a very ancient city, really. You know, the cathedral's fantastic. It's one of the best cathedrals in the country. If you ever get the chance to tour York, do so. Lovely place. You will not recognise anything about New York from York or vice versa. No way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, opposite.
I think Toronto was called York at one time too.
Yep.
In the early days.
Yep. Yeah, English explorers, strange breed of creatures. Yeah. It probably comes from shouting English very slowly at anybody that doesn't speak the language. Anyway, Jen, what have you been up to this week? Obviously not travelling to Oktoberfest.
No, I will be going to SMX East next week in New York. Speaking of New York, I'm speaking on voice search. So I've been reading lots of papers and stuff on voice search, and pulling out some really, really fascinating stats on where voice search is going. So I'm going to do an article about that next week as well that I'll publish after my presentation, because there's some stuff in there that I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm massively following that myself. Perna Vergy, of course, has shared quite a few interesting parts on that.
Yeah, she's on the panel as well.
That woman who keeps not turning up when we invite her. What's with that, Perna? What's going on? But yeah, she's got some good stuff out there. It's fascinating. Yeah, I wish I could catch it. Do let us know when your slide deck's up. And, we will all check it out. Terry, what have you been up to this week?
No good.
Exactly.
I registered a new domain for a new business I'm opening. It's called cannabisbuzz.ca. Going to be covering the cannabis industry in Canada, which is opening up, everything becoming legal. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so very interesting new challenge.
Yes.
And mostly looking at there's going to be a big need for media in that that knows the laws and that sort of thing for it. So looking into that pretty carefully.
Are you going to end up competing with the old guys from Webmaster Radio, Darren, who of course sold up?
Actually, well, I'm working with another person that has close affiliations with them. Let's put it that way. I don't know if I can name them yet, but
are you hedging your bets there?
Yeah, you could say
that. Kristen, what have you been up to this week? Apart from writing, obviously. And muting.
I was trying really hard to get to the cursor before you said that. Yeah. I'm like, sure, I have to know that.
We have a theme to the show. We're all up to no good.
Yes.
I learned from the best.
I think Google often thinks that all SEOs are up to no good every week. Yeah, we're at best misguided children at times. To an extent, they got a point, but I must admit, I've been quite disappointed with Google's communication in the past months. There was an exchange from Gary, basically saying that webmasters didn't need to know about updates, even important ones, necessarily. Well, actually, I think they kind of do. I think there should be more transparency in something as important as Google. Google can't pretend it's this little private company. It's not private. It's got big shares. It's a hugely globally important business. It is the gatekeeper for so much of the knowledge and information of the world. They, have it as their thing, that they are the, organisers of the world's knowledge. Well, you can't give yourself that kind of title and then not be really open and clear about how you are storing, finding and disseminating that knowledge. If you're going to give yourself that kind of role, it carries responsibility. With great power, Gary Elliott, comes great responsibility. Step up to it.
Well,
to
there
play
also
devil's
like that. Okay, go ahead. Go.
to play devil's advocate, like I can kind of see where they're coming from, because if they give too much information away, it's just going to help the spammers rank higher, and then they're going to have a whole much bigger problem to deal with than just communications. I can't remember if it was Gary or John used the example of, okay, well, if dog pages are ranking for cat pages and we change something so that doesn't happen, that's not actionable. So they're saying that they're talking about it when it's stuff actionable that webmasters can do to improve their sites or to do something specific in response to an update or a quality adjustment or whatever to help their sites rank better. But if it's a case of dog sites ranking for cat sites, should they tell those dog sites, well, what we did is we changed this little thing so you can't rank for this keyword that you shouldn't be ranking for anyway? So I can kind of see from one perspective why they're not, because...
And the direction that things are going, like to be more real time so that people can have more of an opportunity to change things, like they are clearly into a direction where they're trying to the webmasters to change things. It's just how
Yeah, I mean,
I'm empowered myself. I didn't need Google to empower me. What happened to going out and learning something? What is it with this spoon feeding? Like, I don't get it. Not at all. Like,
Yeah.
I learned more.
I started using Ghost Browser.
By figuring it out on my own than what Google has ever done. Because by doing that, I learned how to figure out stuff without Google telling me and before Google told me. So I don't agree with it. I take the point of Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth.
I don't know about that. He was the villain, Terry. Just I don't want to spoil the ending of that movie for you.
Anything.
And that was why he was the villain, was that attitude that, you know, he set himself up as the judge and jury for all men. You know, you don't have that level of responsibility.
No, but I strongly believe that the quality of SEOs has gone down with the more information that they're given by Google, because they don't have to learn it on their own. They all look to get spoon-fed, and if Google isn't spoon-feeding it to them, they don't act on it.
One
They
thing
just had their RSS feeds like set up to like get the most popular update or whatever.
one of the rules I have
Know
with
who
my
that
kids,
is from.
one of the rules I have with my kids, if they're old enough to ask the question and to know what they're asking, they're old enough to handle the answer. And I think Google maybe needs to take that approach. Look, if people are asking genuine questions and they know enough to ask the question, they know enough to get an honest answer. Now, yeah, it doesn't have to be super detailed, super specific, but it does need to be genuine. I'll bring this up because it's an important example. We did the most recent Google Q&A, and I found it quite disappointing because we kind of asked several times about, you know, what goes into the priority, even in a general sense. And it felt to me like that question was ducked every single time. Now, I know they don't want to give away too much. They don't want to give away the palm. You know us guys, we are respectful. We certainly accept that. But I think that there is a level of information, there is a general answer you can give to that is both true and helpful to people. That helps them stop going down the wrong path, like changing the bloody dates on their posts. You know, I think there is a level at which it's tricky. I know it is. But if people are intelligent enough to ask the question, I think you owe it to them to give them a very honest answer and not just duck the question. And you know what? If you do have to duck it, if the powers that be behind the scenes, if the legal team is saying, whatever you do, do not discuss this, just say, I'm afraid we can't discuss that. That's honest. That's clear.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of, I don't know, ducking just feels wrong.
That's the most annoying thing. Like when you're just like, I am so tired of being ignored. It's like me and my divorce right now. I'm so tired of you not responding to me. Are you being like cautioned to not talk to me? And every time I say like that magic phrase, then he responds back. But everything else I say in between, like can I see the kids or whatever, like he ignores. Like,
Yeah.
Don't duck me.
I don't, you know, I mean, there's two others here that were on the Google Q&A, so maybe they didn't feel the same way. But I did feel just a little bit disappointed with that one because it just felt like, you know, the most important question that we had, we got nothing on. You know, there was some interesting stuff generally, but the biggest thing I took away from that discussion was ultimately the idea of, wow, Google are really scared of this being abused. That was the one, because we've had so many open discussions before about so many other topics that for that to be just so completely ducked, it made me feel, oh, they are really scared of this being abused. There could be a real weakness there. Which, you know, I'm not the only one who's going to think that, and now there's going to be tons of people running experiments and trying to find that weakness. I don't think that was the ultimate goal that Google would have had for that. Bill, Jen,
Trying to
what
think
did
if
you
it was during a webmasters forum or if it was during that hangout, but John made some sort of reference to the team, like really looking at that, like that particular team that addresses that, to working on it.
Google has written one document that should be the guideline for an SEO, and that's the one that listed 22 good things about a website or something along those lines. Come out just after Panda, build your site like that. You don't have to ask Google another question.
Well, it didn't cover how indexing is prioritized. If every site could have every page indexed, regularly picked up instantly, then that wouldn't be an issue. But there are times, for instance, have you looked at 304s? If you haven't, you're missing a huge trick in terms of indexation. Google have discussed it a couple of times in Webmaster Hangouts. I know that John's mentioned it once or twice, but if you haven't looked up 304s and what they can do for you, then you are missing a big trick. Now, we didn't cover that one in the Hangout because, to be honest, with the questions they were ducking, I didn't think we were going to get anything, even more specific, so I didn't bother with more specific ones. But crawl priority is already an issue, and it's going to become a much bigger one, and it's nothing to do with the quality of the site necessarily. It's very hard for you to start a brand new site of top quality that you haven't got instant links for or a network of people to give you links, where understanding how crawl works isn't going to be absolutely critical to how successful you can be and how quickly. And in these days where so many people are either bootstrapping and on a very limited budget, they could go under if they don't get success within a certain time. Or the flip side, they're operating on investor money, and investors have a timeline in which they tend to be paid back. Well, these are two very critical things for most businesses today. Timelines are really important, and therefore the crawl priority, how fast you can be indexed, whether or not you rank for anything, but how fast you can be indexed is critical, and it's going to become more important. Google has got trillions of URLs to think about. Trillions. And that is a Leviathan task that cannot be done every month. You cannot go and index a trillion URLs every month.
When we went through the mobile updates, Google provided lots of answers to questions about those. They provided tools to test your site with. They provided site owners with all the things that they needed to address those problems, and they made it easy for them to not get penalized, even though they warned about penalties. With something like crawl priority and crawl budget, we are flying a little bit blind. We don't quite know what's going on with things like PageRank. If it's disappearing, if it's gone for good, we have no longer have a PageRank tool. Yeah, we don't have Internet Explorer as a place for a plugin for that to see that, but still, it's no longer publicly an annotation for pages that people can look at to see how well their site's doing, to see if their pages are indeed indexed. We don't know for certain. Domain authority, page authority are surrogates from Moz. They're not real things. They're not actual things from Google. And if Moz tells me that my domain authority is 67, how much does that mean to me at Google? Not too much, I think.
Yeah, exactly that. And the same, I love the tool Moz. Majestic, I think it's a great tool, but TrustFlow is not the same thing. It doesn't exactly mirror it. It gives you an idea. You can compare TrustFlow to TrustFlow. You can compare Moz's domain authority to Moz's domain authority and say, this is how this analyzed this page, and this is how it comparatively analyzed this page. This is what it found. Maybe Google's finding the same thing because the symptoms of that are the same.
Right. So historically, I have 5 importance metrics I'm aware of from Google. PageRank, backlinks, forward links, topic influenced rank for a page, and page rank. I don't think I repeated it twice. I may have, but no.
Update as well. You know, how,
Location, how close it is to the root of the domain.
yeah.
And those are historically the importance metrics I'm aware of for priority crawl. That's what Google said, or Stanford said 10 years ago on the Stanford website. These are papers that Google has adopted, and one of them was URL efficiency through, or web crawling through URL efficiency by Lawrence Page and Jung-Ho Cho. And I remember reading that and saying, you know, these are important, these are helpful. It's good to know. This gives me some idea of why a page might get crawled by Google, why it might be considered important, why Google might crawl 1 million home pages as opposed to one 1 million page site.
And another thing that came up, you know, since in the midst of those 10 years, if a topic has that burstiness, a new term comes up, it does seem that that can trigger Google to look for more pages that are about that, or, you know, crawl more of that, because they know this is a trending thing, that something has happened there and it needs fresh information on it.
Right.
It's kind of, you know, we've got in the results, we've got the query demands freshness. I think sometimes there are things where it says index demands freshness as well. You know, there is something significant that's changed here, so we should grab fresh documents wherever possible to grab the newest data on this.
And that was one of those original importance metrics. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have they changed? We didn't get an answer to that question.
Yeah.
And
So,
it
you know,
did get danced around.
It did feel that, you know, that one was danced around. As I say, the biggest takeaway for me was how cautious Google were over that particular one, more than any other topic, you know, we've discussed, kind of thing. And that, to me, said that they really were worried about, you know, maybe the Viper chills of this world running experiments, maybe, you know, it is something that webmasters and SEOs have triggered an extra level of caution on. But yeah, it was disappointing.
The answer we were given was people might try things that don't get them benefit.
Yeah, let's face it. Hands up, anyone who believes Google's worried about people trying things that don't affect results. I mean, that's already its own fix, isn't it? If it doesn't affect results, it doesn't change anything. People
It doesn't affect
care.
them. Yeah.
What they're worried about is you changing things that will affect results. You know, say so. That's fine, but yeah, be honest with us.
You know, it reminds me of the days when you used to enter a URL in Alta Vista to enter a new page, and you would know the page would show up soon after you entered it in the add URL. Yeah.
Well, remember, Alta Vista, it was instant spidering. It could take a little while to get into the index still. It could take a week. Infoseek was the one with the instant indexing. I mean, that was amazing. You could literally put up a page, submit it, see where it ranked, go and tweak it, resubmit it, and see how it changed in real time. So, I mean, you can literally optimize on the fly with Infoseek. That was, 90s.
Imagine if Google did that today. Imagine the fun people would be having.
Oh, God. Yeah. You know, it's fine. We also believe there is a delay on certain things, that there may be a literal sandbox, to use a term that was completely misused in the past. You know, Google has said that where it spots some changes and it thinks that these are an attempt to influence results, it might deliberately not fluctuate that site for a little while or hold things back even, you know.
I hate to do this, but I have to leave. I have a 1 o'clock meeting.
I hadn't realised we were at the time.
I'll see you all. Thank you.
Take care, Bill. See you next week.
Bye now.
Well, I guess we had better get to a wrap-up. I hadn't realised that hour had flown by. Jen, what are you up to this week coming up?
Gonna be writing the voice search article to publish next week, because whenever I'm at a conference, you always have these grandiose visions that you're going to get all this stuff done, and you literally have time to do nothing. So I'm going to get some stuff ready for next week to publish while I am away, and I have another big guide post that I'm working on as well, off and on, that I'll try to finish up as well.
Cool. A guide post, is it how to sell cookies?
Of course. Every good SEO needs to know how to sell cookies.
And Kristen, what are you up to this week?
No good.
That's a given. What specifically?
Oh, well, I can't tell all my secrets.
Okay. I know you are playing with some writing of your own, so I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
I
that.
am. With it. That's fine.
It's funny how writing is the one thing where you don't kind of get that cobbler's children effect. There's a lot of things where when you do them for a living, you can't bear to do it for yourself. It varies. Terry, I know some chefs like this, but I know chefs that are completely opposite. I know chefs who will not let anybody else cook for them at all, ever, kind of thing, unless it's going out for a meal, and then they judge it like hell. But I also know chefs who, they come home, the last thing they want to do is cook. Writing
For myself, like, just so I can, like, have peace of mind. Like, I'm like writing for everyone else, and then I'm like kind of like, I just need to do a silly piece. So I do it, and then I feel better.
Yeah, I think there is that element to it where the more we write for others and have to channel others' words and thoughts and message, the more we kind of need to do a little bit of our own. Express ourselves as well, even if it's something we don't publish, even if it's just something we're writing into a little scrapbook somewhere. Terry, what are you up to this week other than no good?
Oh, she's stolen all my good lines now.
No, she does that.
No. This week, probably going to finish up porting some Unix stuff to Azure. Figured out how you do the canonicalization on Azure. It's quite simple, actually. Well, unless you don't like the web config file in Windows. I'm not a big fan of it, since Microsoft itself said it's not a very good way to do things. But then they went and made .NET a website in a form, so, can't really go by much they say.
Monica, are you criticizing Microsoft? Terry, what's happened? Where's the
Part of it? Yeah, big time. That's why I now do PHP. Get it the hell off their system is the way I'm thinking. All it is to sell books and software. No other reason to do it. I mean, you take a language that's being taught in university for decades, and you decide you're going to go to some obscure language that only Microsoft developers want to use. No thanks. I said that's enough of this stuff and moved on. Now I do PHP.
Yep. Well, folks, that's it for this week. We will see you next week, and take care. Well, Jen won't be here next week because she'll be at SMX. If anyone else is going to
Wait,
SMX,
what are you doing?
What, me this week?
Yeah.
Well, what I'm up to this